All right, so today we are looking majorly into demand and supply. Okay, so let's look into the major. A minute, please. Sorry, a minute, please. Okay, yeah. So we today we are looking into demand and supply majorly. Okay, so what's up there? So why is the pen not? Sorry, a minute. Okay, we are looking into demand. Okay, sorry. Yeah, demand and supply. Okay, so and majorly that is the end of phase one. On the normal mentorship scale, this is the end of phase one. This is the last topic I teach that signifies the end of phase one. So which means that tomorrow, which is day 4, you are starting phase 2 entirely. So this is what round off everything about structure and the likes like that. So yeah, that is majorly the thing. So the first topic we have here is more on imbalance and basis. Actually, I've spoken a lot about imbalance. I've spoken majorly about imbalance yesterday, and this is not the time to teach. The other thing that we'll be teaching under imbalance will be momentum shift, but we have not gotten there. That is on phase 2. Okay. So that is when we'll be talking about POI selection and the like. So that is where we'll be talking about momentum shift. So that is the other part of imbalance that we'll be discussing. Okay. So about I will talk more on basis so as to integrate major knowledge of what is the concept behind basis. Like I said, it is not something to cram. It's not just about a candle. Though I briefed it yesterday when someone asked a question about how do they identify basis. Is it just by candle? And I let you guys understand where you see consolidation and all that. But to ensure that you understand that better, so I will be talking more on that. Okay. So let's look at that before we proceed to other things. Okay, so majorly we have what we call Wyckoff cycle. I'm not teaching Wyckoff, but just to understand what we want to deal with. So majorly we have what we call Wyckoff cycle. Okay, so what is Wyckoff cycle? What is Wyckoff cycle majorly talking about? So Wyckoff cycle is majorly talking about the whole movement of price at every point in time. That is, for a complete movement of price, either the price is correcting, that is a pullback, or it is a major impulse, it must have completed a Wyckoff cycle. Same thing with Elliott wave. That's what Elliott wave was actually trying to say as well, that to have a complete wave, which means a complete movement. You must have made what? 5 movement, that is wave 1, 2, 3. For Elliot is saying that you must have had your origin, your wave 1, wave 2, which is a pullback, wave 3, the next impulsive wave, which is usually the longest, but not always. Then wave 4, not going beyond wave 1 high, and then wave 5. Okay, so that is it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So R.N. Elliot was able to argue the fact that what is it called? That a complete movement in the market must be 5 what? 5 more with 3 major impulses and 2 corrections. Then we can say that, oh, a certain cycle is complete, and then we can look for either a correction. So even inside the correction, each of these correction A, B, C, each of these correction, sorry, this is not A, this is an origin. So each of the correction A, B, and C should still have, for example, what makes up A must still be 5 impulsive movements, okay, like that. So, but that is too complicated and it is kind of too subjective. So that is why I eliminated that. Up to the end of 2020, I think I still teach Elliott wave to some extent, but it is too subjective, and that is why out of all the major laws that we know, Wyckoff still remain the only one that is really much less subjective, that it is more objective, is more definite and all that. And in fact, that is what it is on Wyckoff that most of these concepts is built around. Smart money concepts and all. Wyckoff is the first major old theory or old ways through which people get to know about how the whole thing that Wyckoff is trying to explain is about how the smart money concept actually works. Okay, so that's it. So for a Wyckoff cycle, majorly, so we have the accumulation phase. Okay, so we have the accumulation. Okay, in a bullish environment, we have the accumulation. Okay, then we have the reaccumulation. Okay, and then we now have this guy as liquidity initiator. Okay, which is usually liquidity. And then before we have the final phase. I will explain why I had to include that. So we have the final phase, distribution. Okay, then from distribution as well, we have a redistribution. Okay, we have that guy again, and then accumulation to complete that movement. So this is a complete cycle. Okay, and this downward as well is a complete what? Is a complete cycle. Okay, so we have the accumulation, reaccumulation, unsupported base, which is our liquidity, which we will look at shortly. And then we have what? We have distribution. Then for distribution, redistribution, unsupported base, and then accumulation. So this is what completes what? A Wyckoff cycle. This is all you need to know about Wyckoff, okay? Now, what is now the true basis? Your true basis are the consolidation phases, okay? This guy right here, your accumulation, is your base, okay? Is the base that is formed through a drop, okay? A drop base that is accumulation in order to reverse, a base, and then rally. Drop, base, and then rally. Drop, base, the base, and then the rally to the upside, okay? So that is the one we always find at the end, at the point of reversal, okay? So that is type of candle drawn for you yesterday that is found at the point of what? Reversal. This other small candle here, okay? And then drop. So this is a rally, this first one, then the base, this small candle, which is the distribution in this scenario, and then drop. Okay, so this is distribution. So that is a base. Okay, so that is a what? That is a base. So it is not enough to identify it by candle. So on lower time frame, this is what you see. You will see the whole major consolidation. You see that it is a whole major area, either an accumulation, a distribution, a reaccumulation, and the likes. Okay, I hope I'm making sense. So that is your what? That is your base. The base here is the distribution. Now, what is the next base that is found? Now, we have the first rally, the accumulation, and then another rally. This guy right here, the reaccumulation, is the next true base. That is your base 2. Okay. At times, this guy, we find it before structure get broken, or which in that scenario we call a Q base. What is the meaning of a Q? A Q is a Q simply means what signals. It is a signal. Okay. Something that happened just before another thing happened. That is the reaction before a break of structure. The reaction before something. So it is more like a signal. Q means signal. So that is what we call, why we call it a Q base. That's why we call it a what? A Q base. So a Q base is the scenario whereby this our reaccumulation happens before the completion or before the total breakout out of a what is it called? Out of an accumulation phase. Okay. For example, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? At times you may have something like this. So we have a markdown, then we have this accumulation, whereby we have this as the minus sign of strength, and then maybe our spring, and then this. So at times you may have your reaccumulation here before breakout. So this is your reaccumulation that you see here, this guy that you see here before your breakout will appear as a base, that is as that your doji candle on a corresponding higher time frame, of course, right? So this guy right here is what we call a Q base before the break of M minus sign of strength. Okay, if you want to do more research on Wyckoff, you can search that. I can also send you guys materials. I think I will send materials on Wyckoff, but don't dwell on it, please. You don't need it at all. You don't even need to understand what Wyckoff is for this mentorship. Please and please. Because students, once you hear something or the likes like that, before you know it, that's what you will be reading and you will forget what really matters. Okay? Everything here is simplified version of Wyckoff. We are not cramming here. So what we are bringing here is major understanding. Okay? So you don't have anything to cram. Because going online to search for Wyckoff, most people that even teach Wyckoff online and all, they cram it. So I will send you guys my video on Wyckoff. I've actually taught Wyckoff before. Okay, for some of you that are here, I've taught you guys Wyckoff before. So I will send video on Wyckoff. So watch that video if you don't have maybe basic understanding of Wyckoff before, just at your free time, but don't dwell too much on it. Is that understood? So understand what I'm saying. So I will send you guys video on Wyckoff, my own personal video. Okay, so this is reaccumulation, which is what? Our Q base. This is our Q base. Okay, so if it happens before the MCO, but if it happens after, it is just a normal base, just base, which also can be our PO what? Our PO high. Is that understood? So as I was saying, in this scenario, so this is a true base. A true base is where we have the reaccumulation. That is our reaccumulation is the true base. And this our reaccumulation is not just the true base alone, but that is also our controlling demand. Controlling what? Demand in this scenario. So I'm already in number 2 of demand and supply. Controlling demand and supply. Okay, so this your true base is your controlling demand, while this unsupported base is the liquidity for your true base, that is for the reaccumulation. So a reaccumulation area or a redistribution area is a PO high on its own. Very important. I will show you cases of that. So when you spot a reaccumulation, either totally outside an accumulation phase, or within an accumulation phase, you know that is a PO high. Note that even before we get to PO high. Okay. So this guy, this unsupported wave, this liquidity that was created for it, it might look supported at times, though. It might touch this high at times. But whenever you see something like this particular guy is liquidity for this area. This is your major area. This is the controlling what? Your controlling demand. That is your what? Your controlling demand. That is your controlling demand. Okay. So, and this is the liquidity for it. Liquidity X. Let me use red for that. Okay. So, this guy here. So, this guy is your liquidity what? Liquidity X. To activate what? To activate your controlling demand area, which is your reaccumulation. So, if order flow will continue to the upside, you expect price to induce this guy's liquidity and to use this reaccumulation phase to continue. If price has not reached major what? Major PO high to completely reverse. So after that, you have your distribution, same thing, redistribution, liquidity for redistribution, X, and then continuation to the upside. Which means if price wants to even continue, you will see at times price will pull back to induce this particular liquidity, then towards the redistribution area, and then continue order flow. Is that understood? So that is what we call controlling demand and supply. So your controlling demand and supply are your reaccumulation and your redistribution around the range. So if price is not using your accumulation areas or your distribution area, then you should know that where your POI area, that is your range, where you'll be looking for continuation of order flow, that is continuation or to take a continuation trade, will be around the controlling demand or a controlling what? A controlling supply. Is that understood? So that is that. So that is all about more on basis, controlling demand and supply. Then I've already stated fake demand and supply area. I've taught everything. So what are your fake demand and supply area? This unsupported base. That is your fake demand and supply area. Okay. So that is your fake demand and supply area, nothing more. So that is it. So the last thing I will teach tonight is zones and calls in pricing. That is your primary zone, secondary zone, and your internal what? Internal zone area. Primary zone, secondary zone, and internal zone. But before we get to that, let's look at the example on chart on what we have dealt with so far. Okay. So let's look at example on chart for what we have dealt with so far. All right. So let me look into simpler example before we go to maybe more complex examples. I hope you guys are following though. Hope nothing is confusing. Did you guys follow through on that? Hope nothing confused you about everything I've said. Were you guys able to follow through? Okay, all good. All right, great. Okay, so that is that. Okay, so let's look at this particular trend, for example. So let's look at this particular trend, for example. Inside here on the weekly time frame, you guys might not see it, but it is there. Inside here, the whole thing that happened here before this spring or whatever, though in this scenario, we have more like a dynamic distribution accumulation. So we have what we call dynamic accumulation. In fact, your range structure at times serve as dynamic distribution or dynamic accumulation. That is, let's say I have something like this, and then range structure. So this could be a what? A dynamic distribution. A dynamic distribution or accumulation simply means a distribution that is trending, that is not in a box, that is not more like a consolidation. So that is trending, whereby we will start saying PS or minor sign of weakness, like that. Like we will be picking them. Even your UT, UTAD, everything will be in ascending. Okay, so not in a consolidating phase or not in a box phase. Is that understood? So that is that. So that is what we mean by as dynamic distribution or accumulation. Okay. So here we have a dynamic accumulation. This guy right here. Okay. Before this, all these guys is accumulation. Now, what is our where is our reaccumulation? Before we break this structure, we have our reaccumulation. Our reaccumulation here is this guy. These are reaccumulation. Where is the liquidity for the reaccumulation? It is this guy. Okay, so this is the liquidity for it. Although in this scenario, price has shifted to the downside. Price is totally coming downward. That is why you see price not reacting to it. But in a normal sense, let's say price is not reversing. Let's say price wants to like continue order flow. So it is this area you would have seen this guy as inducement or as liquidity X. Okay, that is the basis of even understanding the whole inducement thing. Okay, so you would have seen that. Wait, hello, can you guys see all my markings? Okay, I think it is appearing. So I made this low right here. I said it is our reaccumulation, accumulation, reaccumulation. Do you guys see all that part? Okay, but has it appeared now? All right, it has appeared. So you guys see the X, right? So this S right here is what I'm calling liquidity for your reaccumulation. Okay. All right. So what I was saying is here we have our accumulation. Okay. So we have our reaccumulation. Okay. Then after we break above the high of reaccumulation, the immediate low of it is the X. That is the liquidity for reaccumulation. Okay. That's the liquidity for reaccumulation. Then before we have our distribution and then before the reversal. So do we copy that now? Do we copy that? Are we all on the same page now? Okay. So I was trying to say that I didn't mean that what is it called? I didn't mean that price is to continue upward. Okay. I didn't mean that price is to continue upward. Normally, this below this low, if I'm selling here, okay, if I'm selling here, this would have been my first major target, this low here. Why? Because that is the liquidity for reaccumulation. So below this low, normally you would have watched price to continue your bullish movement. Okay. So, but in this scenario, price probably has strike a certain POI at the left side and is ready for a complete reversal. So bias has already changed, price has already shifted downward. Okay. But in norms, this is your controlling what? You're controlling demand. This area right here. That, that should have been your controlling demand. So let us see area whereby it's actually held as a controlling demand. That is where we didn't have reversal. Okay, so let us see such area or such scenario. Okay, so let me go to maybe lower time frame. Okay, I'm trying to see if we can have a simpler scenario for you guys. Okay, this is one. This is one. Now, look at this guy right here. This buy, Adibin price is not ready to reverse or to cause a shift in structure. This buy that you see here should have could have created a higher high. Okay, so but because of course you are at a POI for sell and all that, so that is why. Why did it disappear? Where is the buy I was trying to show you guys? I don't know why. What's happening? This thing is not even following through. Okay. I don't know why that is slow to. Okay. Yeah. So I was trying to talk about this area here, this mini trend here, this mini trend here. Okay. So this guy, oh God, what is happening now? And I want to finish this part before our time allows for the next phase, which will be the final phase for tonight. Price is not giving me the chance. In this, so I'm talking about this trend here. Okay. So we have what is it called? So in this scenario, we have our accumulation phase. Okay. This I here is our minor sign of strength. Okay. So after price breakage, that would have been your minor break of structure, whatever thing. And then your redistribution start. Your redistribution, reaccumulation in this scenario is beyond this. Okay. So all of these trends that you see is your reaccumulation. Okay. So by the time you watch that reaccumulation video, you will understand. So this just in form of ascending. All these guys is your reaccumulation. So what is the liquidity for the reaccumulation? This low right here. Okay. So majorly this buy is very valid. So you could have taken this buy. Had even price want to continue higher, price would have used that. That is what price would have used to continue. So this is your leg, which people call inducement. So this is the basic of understanding inducement majorly. Okay. So this guy right here is your liquidity for reaccumulation. So in this scenario, let's say you don't understand yet that we used to have what unsupported base for this guy for reaccumulation or something, you could have been trying to buy here and you would have lost money. Okay. Meanwhile, this is just mere liquidity based on what? Based on Wyckoff cycle. So this is a complete cycle: accumulation, reaccumulation, liquidity for reaccumulation, then a tiny distribution that shifted price downward. Is that understood? So that is it. So that is an idea of that. I will still show more examples to actually help you guys on that. Okay. Something like that must have happened here. I'm very sure, but we can't see that clearly from this time frame. And I don't want to go to lower time frame. This low must have been the liquidity, okay, for this area. So this area right here, for this area, this low must have been the liquidity for it. Okay. So, and this guy, can you see? This is your reaccumulation, as small as it may be. So that tiny guy is what price used to continue that flow. So this guy right here is the liquidity for it. Okay. So in this scenario, it is a Q base. It happened before price break the what? MSOS. Is that understood? So that is your Q base, which is the controlling demand, and this is the liquidity provided for it. Okay, so that is the liquidity provided for it. So you see it actually many times on chart. Okay, so same thing I think happened here. As tiny as maybe it's not by how big or how small. In this scenario, this is our MSOS. Okay, this is our Q base area. Okay, which is what later sponsored the buy. And this low right here is inducement for it. Okay, it's inducement for it. Let me go to 1 hour. That should be clearer on 1 hour. Okay, where did they all go? Where did they all go? Can't find my charts anymore. I can't find my chart anymore. A minute. Okay, I found it. Okay, so I was trying to talk about here. So, and that Cubase area sponsored the whole buy. Okay, now on a bigger scale, look at it. Look at what will happen here now. Look at what will happen here. You can go and monitor it on a bigger scale. Look at this. On a bigger scale, this is our last BMS to this downside. This is accumulation. Now, this whole thing was a mini cycle. You know, we have minor degree inside a major degree. Elliott Wave even let us understand that. Minor degree inside major, inside major, inside major. Now, the whole thing that happened here, this old guy that happened here induced liquidity to a much more smaller reaccumulation and all, is now the bigger reaccumulation for the break of this structure. That is the next Cubase for this break of this structure. And that is why this guy was able to come to you through order flow, inducing liquidity. This was the unsupported base for it. You can see that. And then coming to the primary zone of it to actually continue another order flow. So for this new break of structure here, BMS here, who can tell me what will be the next Cubase or reaccumulation for it? Controlling demand here, it will be this guy, isn't it? Isn't it? That is the next area for this next order flow structure. Do we all agree to that? That this guy is the next area. Do we all agree? That's true, right? Based on everything that I've been saying. Good. So which means if price is shifting back towards this area, then it means that this low right here is the unsupported base for it. The initiator of all this range structure, this low right here is liquidity. Okay, you know, I was still saying it yesterday that, oh, range structure is to come and induce it and all. That's why I say it is the basis of all this. So if you understand all these things, by the time I start talking about all this liquidity trap in phase 2 tomorrow, you will really get it faster. Okay, so you will really tend to understand it faster. So you shouldn't be surprised if price came all the way. If I start selling all these guys and price now came all the way, I sell and I target all these guys and I target this low. The reason why I'm targeting all this low is not because even of these guys. That's why I said liquidity is beyond that. You must have seen on my status before on IG, correcting people that liquidity is not just trend line or whatever thing. No. When price is seeking liquidity, funny thing is that most times it is seeking just a single low or so. So the major reason why I will be targeting all these lows at liquidity is not because it is a trend line. Okay, it is because of this low, this guy here, which is the liquidity for this reaccumulation. That is the only major reason why I'm selling. That is the reason why I will be what? Selling once price break, I think this low here, because this is a controlling demand for all this guy here. This particular guy as well is also a mini controlling demand, whereby there is liquidity for it. So if price to continue range structure, this is the one price we use. So the moment price break this low here, 100%, like I can guarantee you, go and monitor it. This is GBP USD. The moment price has even already broken it, you should be looking for a sell. Okay, except if there is a detail here, which I doubt. Okay, the moment price has broken this guy here now, what I will be looking for will be sell. In fact, tomorrow I will add it to my watch list. That is what I will be looking for. Trust me. Nothing else I will be looking for. The moment price has broken this low that I can see here, this low should have been the structure point. Except if there is an arm mitigation I can't see here, which I doubt. Okay, except for that. So following my intraday whatever thing, I will be selling around this range. I will be selling around maybe at the extreme or wherever price wants to go. I will be selling and I will be targeting this low, this liquidity that will mark, because price has already broken that based on even understanding of time frame difference. I hope I'm making sense. So I will be selling and I will be targeting this particular guy here as liquidity. Okay. So that's just how it flows. So we will rejoin for the last part of tonight's class, and we'll call it a night. So in the next less than 2 minutes, do you guys have any question that I can quickly explain before we move to the last phase? The last phase of tonight is also faster as well. Do you have any question? Or I should end the meeting and then we come back? Any question? Someone said yes. Is that a question? Do you mean you have a question by saying yes, or we should proceed? Please let me know what you are saying. Yes, reaccumulation can happen before break of structure or after break of structure. Okay. So when you can't, the scenario whereby it happens after break of structure is when we have what we call momentum shift. A momentum shift will always happen in such that price will not have internal structure. But because in the real sense, your reaccumulation, if it is not a mere liquidity, is majorly your internal structure. That is it in the real sense, isn't it? It is your internal structure. So, for example, before price break this is your internal structure, isn't it? This is your external liquidity. Okay. So, except for some cases when we're talking about liquidity where it is